إن الحمد لله أحمده واستعينه واستغفره واستهديه وأعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا رب صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we are approaching the end of this Gregorian year and the beginning of the next one, 2023, there are a couple of things that a Muslim should remind himself about. And the first one that I would like to emphasize here is perhaps surprising to everyone, is that we should always think about us, the Muslims, and how we belong to this calendar. In the times of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Gregorian calendar was there, and the solar kind of month system was there, and those months like January, February were called by Arabic names. There's Shbat, there's Kanun, there's Kanun Awwal, Kanun Thani, Tishrin, and all that stuff. Those were very old, but Muslims have abstained and refrained from using them. Instead, Muslims have chosen the lunar calendar and have started their year based on al-Hijrah. That was the calendar that the Muslims have chosen for themselves. That's the calendar that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted the people to follow. That's what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam embraced. The lunar calendar, the one that starts from Muharram and ends with Dhul Hijjah. It's very touching and very sad actually in today's time that most of the Muslims don't even know the month they live in. Like everyone will tell you are in December, but what month in al-Hijri calendar it is? I bet if we ask most of us here in this masjid, we don't even know. It's Jummah al-Thaniya, by the way. Jummah al-Thaniya is the current Hijri month that we are in right now. And after that there is Rajab, and then Sha'ban, and then inshallah Ramadan. It's very sad that Muslims don't even think about this as part of their identity, when the Rasul ﷺ made it part of their identity. Because as Muslims, we should always follow and trace and track the beginning of every lunar month, and every time that we see the crescent, there is a dua about it, like Rasul ﷺ taught us, Allahumma أهله علينا باليمن والإيمان والسلامة والإسلام ربي وربك الله. Oh Allah, start this month with barakah, with iman, with safety and Islam. Oh Allah, you are my Lord and the Lord of this crescent. That's how we are connected to this calendar. And every year passes over, we remember the most significant event that has happened through the human mankind history. And that was the hijrah of Rasulullah ﷺ from Mecca to Medina. Not his birth, not his death, it was the hijrah, the most significant incident that has happened in the history of Islam. Because that was the starting of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from us, establishing the real Islamic life in Medina. So brothers and sisters, it is very important for us to think many times about how we can get back to our root and how we can make the calendar, the Hijri calendar, as part of our daily life. Some families that I have been talking to had a great idea or have implemented a way to do it. And they made a board in their living room where they had the Hijri calendar written every single day. They update that. And they keep reminding themselves about where they are at, like the month and the day. And that's a great way of doing things. Perhaps there's no other way for us to remember unless we ourselves make the effort for it. Because nothing really in this world reminds us with the day and the month of Al-Hijrah calendar that we are in. And dear brothers and sisters, don't take this lightly. This is significant for us as Muslims. You know why? Because when you stick yourself to the Hijri calendar, not only that you are reminding yourself with part of your identity, but also it links you to all those major events that have happened in the history of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and afterwards. Like for example, linking the Battle of Badr to the month and the day and the year of the Hijri year. Linking the marriage of Rasulullah ﷺ to Aisha, to Khadija. Linking the birth of him, the death of him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Linking the Hijrah. Linking all the different incidents that have happened even after him. Linking the time when Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu became part of the Islam. Linking the time when the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the Umrah or the Hajj, the only one Hajj that he did in his life, and so on. That's very important for us. And unfortunately, in today's time, even within Muslims, even within practicing Muslim, that you see people are so much highly educated about worldly and secular things. Like for example, knowing that the names and the date of birth of every player on the team that they are a fan of. And when it comes to the major, most significant incidents and events that have happened in the history of Islam, which is part of our identity, they probably don't even know the name, let alone the date. I did ask many people, especially our youth, like who they are a fan of at the time when we had the World Cup. And they not only tell me the team, they tell me about their most significant players and their history. They know a lot about them, perhaps more than the player himself knows about himself sometimes. And unfortunately, those very people ask them about any of the Sahaba other than Abu Bakr, Umar, and maybe Uthman and Ali, and they won't even know. And I'm not talking about people from the street, I'm talking about people in the masjid. So that's a very shortcoming on our side, like linking ourselves to our calendar, linking ourselves to this ummah, linking ourselves to the history of Islam is actually one of the significant duties that we have as Muslims towards ourselves and towards our families. A second point I would like to say is that perhaps by this time and maybe early next year, people who have businesses, people who have their own, whatever type of things that they do, they like to do some accounting to it. Like you have a store, for example, you want to do some inventory, you want to collect your tax forms and do your tax return. You want to do something to make sure that you are transparent and that everything is really going as being planned, and make sure that you are moving in a successful way. And that's very trivial. And if you don't do that, you will have no luck in this dunya, in this life. You will be screwed up if you don't do this. If you have any business, if you're doing, even if you are a pure employee, you have to always, work on your taxes and make sure that everything is working well. Every income that you made, you have to report, and you have to look back on like what you have done, contributions, charity, all that stuff, and then you put yourself in a very transparent way. Otherwise, there are consequences to that. And everyone knows this, and everyone does this. Almost. But when it comes to doing the same thing for your akhirah, it's a totally different story. Like, how many of us have realized that every single year that passes, it actually, a 1 year that has actually, that you have lost of your life span. Like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for you, for example, to live 70 years, every single year that passes, your 70 years, your remaining balance is less by 1 year. And that means you are closer to your departure from this life. So you better be prepared for it. We're not taking that. One of the tabi'een has reached to the age of 60. And he made a simple calculation of how many days he has lived. And he found out it was more than 21,000 days. 21,000 days and 60 years. And he was shocked. He was like, if I have made only one sin a day, I will be meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with over 21,000 sin. He was so scared from that. And what happens to a person who has been always displeasing Allah day and night, and making sins after sins, and actually not even doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them to do? Dear brothers and sisters, bringing yourself to accountability in this life is a protection for you so that it doesn't happen very bad in the Day of Judgment. And the Sahaba at their time used to do muhasabah every single day. Not every single year, every single day. Dear brothers and sisters, there's nothing really about making some special muhasabah or making some tawbah by the end of the Gregorian year. There's nothing like this. I'm not calling anyone to do this, but I'm trying to link how people nowadays in these days try to secure their businesses, do their inventory, do their tax return and all that stuff, and how we should be doing at least something similar every now and then to the affairs of our akhirah, and make sure that we are doing it in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear brothers and sisters, it's very crucial that we realize that the more that we walk or that we live in this life without accountability, without making muhasabah, is going to take us astray more and more and further more and more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will make it very difficult to go back. And that accountability, when you do it more frequently, it may make your life more difficult at the beginning, but then it will make you very comfortable. You know why? Because at every single day, you can say, oh Allah, if you choose to take me at that day, I'm ready for you. Remember that hadith in which Rasul has said, Man ahabba liqa Allah, ahabba Allahu liqa'ah. Whoever loves the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah loves the meeting, to meet with him or her. Now, if you're not doing muhasabat yourself, are you ready to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And wallahi, ask yourself, let us all ask ourselves, are we ready to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the end of this day? You know the example of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, not only Sahaba, even the pious predecessors after them. The example of their daily affairs is that if they were told, and please pay attention to this, if they were told that today is your last day, they will not be able to find a better way to spend their day more than what they already do, what they already plan, because every single day they plan, they live, they make it as if it was their last day. And if they don't, they have a time when they sit by themselves and they remember what they have done in that day, and they make their repentance, and they make their covenants with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that would be it, and they will be better on the next day. That's what accountability, that's what muhasaba really means to us, brothers and sisters. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم واستغفروه وتوبوا إليه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على توفيقه وامتنانه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشانه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الداعي إلى رضوانه. يا رب صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Dear brothers and sisters, it's very common for people to say, Allah Ghafurur Rahim, and let us not be strict, ya akhi. This man is so extreme. This man is taking it to the hard extent. Well, you know what? You may say that all day long. That doesn't save you and protect you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you say that Allah is the most merciful, Ghafurur Rahim, that's in the Quran. We're not saying anything wrong. But at the same time, you see in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Shadidul Iqab, Sari'ul Hisab, has the most severe punishment, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a quick punishment too. So Allah has both. So when does Allah's mercy apply? It applies to those who make their efforts, and then for a reason or another they couldn't make it. Not those who rely on saying Allah is merciful and then they do whatever they want. Dear brothers and sisters, Rasul was given the green light that his sins, past and future, were all forgiven. Yet he was the most obedient servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who ever walked on this earth. He was the one who would spend his nights in praying. He was the one who would spend his days in fasting and remembering Allah and going for good causes and helping the needy and spreading the da'wah and applying the message and praying in the jama'ah and all that. Oh, and when he was asked, like, all your sins were wiped out. He was like, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا? And shouldn't I be a thankful person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And Rasul also told us that if any person would be judged by Allah based on their deeds, then they will be all to the hellfire. If we are going to be judged in the day of judgment based on what we have accomplished, we will be all in the hellfire. They asked him, Ya Rasulullah, not even you? With all this, the most obedient person, he said, Wala ana, not even me. I will not go to Jannah. Illa أن يتغمدني الله برحمته. Except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows His mercy on me. And I think it's very, very, very reasonable to say why. Like, really, why? And let me try to answer this question. You have your friend who asked you, I want you to bring me something from the store. I need it badly. And you don't do it, even though you can. Do you feel sinful? Well, he needs it badly. Well, it hurts you. You like to help, right? What if it was your brother? What if it was your father? What if it was your mother? What if your mother has asked you, oh son, I'm in desperate need of this. Could you bring it to me? And you have the time, you have the energy, you have everything. You're just saying, no. I know my mom will not be mad at me. Does that work? Now forget about mom and dad and everyone. And just think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your creator. Can't just say Allah is most merciful and just ignore. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in His book and on the tongue of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you cannot be a believer unless you make the salah, unless you make the pillars of Islam and be a good person, and you say, well, I'm relying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work, brothers and sisters. And it makes it even worse when you realize that not only you are disobeying the Allah with His full majesty, you're disobeying the one who created heavens and earth, the one who made your mother and father and everyone around you, but on top of that, you are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using the very bounties and ni'mas and blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. You just cannot listen to something haram unless you use the blessing of hearing. You cannot watch something haram unless you use the ni'mah, the blessing of your sight. You cannot utter something wrong and bad unless you use the blessing of Allah, of the speech ability, and the intellect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. There's no way on earth that you can do anything wrong except by using the very blessings and ni'mah and great things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you as bounties. And you think about it, Allah has all this majesty, and Allah is the one who enabled you to be the person who you are, and yet you're disobeying Him, and yet you're saying Allah is the most merciful. It just doesn't work. Dear brothers and sisters, I hope that we realize that it's not only about, well, major sin and minor sins. You know, major sins and minor sins in Sharia, yes, you can differentiate between them. By the way, a major sin in Sharia means any sin whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that it has a punishment in the Day of Judgment like hellfire. Like for example, وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. Whoever kills an innocent believer will have Jahannam in the hereafter. So that is a major sin. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْخَمْرَ وَشَارِبَهَا وَعَاصِرَهَا وَمُعْتَصِرَهَا وَحَامِلَهَا وَالْمَحْمُولَةَ إِلَيْهِ وَبَائِعَهَا وَمُبْتَاعَهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has cursed wine, alcohol, like the drinking alcohol, and the drinkable alcohol, and whoever drinks it, and whoever buy it, and whoever sell it, and whoever carries it, and whoever whoever it was brought to. So those are major sins. And whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes any sin with anger, with curse, or with the Jahannam as a punishment, it's considered a major sin. That's how we differentiate between a major sin and a minor sin in Islam. However, when you think about who you are sinning, who you are displeasing, then it doesn't, yes, there is a difference between major sin and minor sin, but look at who you are sinning. When you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all His majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with all His mighty, and you're looking at the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you and all the blessings that you are enjoying in this life, even a minor sin doesn't befit. Even a minor sin is so huge. Because they look at the significance of the person, of the one who you are displeasing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear brothers and sisters, I hope that we take these as reminders that we apply on every single day, and not rely on the time when we end a year or end a month, because otherwise, when the person goes in the wrong direction for a long time, it's very, very, very hard to come back on track. So make sure you put yourself back on track as soon as you find out that you are not on it, or otherwise it's going to be too hard. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us together back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to remember the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and remind ourselves of it, and live with the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in every single affairs that we have in this life. Ya Rabbi, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Qayyum as-samawati wal-ardin, arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah, wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ya Allah, Ya Akram al-Akramin, Ya Arhama man khalaq, يا أكرم من سئل، نسألك يا الله بأسمائك الحسنى وصفاتك العلى، نسألك يا الله بكل اسم هو لك أن تغفر لنا في هذا اليوم المبارك أجمعين، وأن تهب المسيئين منا المحسنين. اللهم يا ربنا أصلحنا وأصلح الناس بنا، اللهم يا ربنا واجعلنا في زمرة عبادك الصالحين المتقين يا أكرم الأكرمين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Before we do the iqamah, I want to give two reminders, please. One is that as we get into the masjid, before you sit down, we must make the 2 rak'ah of tahiyyat al-masjid, greeting of the masjid. Rasul has posed his khutbah when he saw a person coming to the masjid and sitting down while Prophet Muhammad was giving the khutbah. So he posed the khutbah and he asked him to go stand up and do the 2 rak'ah. And I see that sometimes during the adhan, some people come to the masjid and they either sit down or they keep standing until the adhan is over, and then they start their 2 rak'ah. And that's wrong, for 2 reasons. One is that they cannot sit down before they start their 2 rak'ah. That's number one. And number 2 is that it is more important to listen to the khutbah than to repeat after the mu'adhin. Repeating after the mu'adhin is sunnah. When he says Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar. That's sunnah. But listening to the khutbah is fard. You cannot escape from it. So if you have a conflict between praying the 2 rak'ah and either listening to the adhan or doing it during the adhan or doing it during the khutbah, then do it during the adhan, so that you can at least catch as much as possible from the khutbah. That's number 1. Number 2, brothers and sisters, we have been suffering from some of those ladies who, they happen to be ladies, but sometimes men come as well, who happen to beg at the front gate or the back gate. And I want you all to be aware. First of all, Those people, we have approached them several times and we asked them, if you are in need, come and make a zakat or a sadaqah application. We will be able to help you and remove you from that poverty that you claim you have. And they never came. They tried one time to come, and when they realized that there is something called, we need to see your identity, they escaped. We reported them to the law enforcement. And we've been told, and many people have confirmed this, that they are working for an organized group. Those people, you may see them at Costco, in front of Costco or some other places. Unfortunately, here they come with hijab, elsewhere they go with something else. The very sad thing is that they are not in need, and they claim a need, and fortunately they have a van that picks them up after the second khutbah. They go somewhere else, like about two blocks away. They gather there, and then some van picks them up. It's highly likely that this is human trafficking. And if it is not, Allahu A'lam, we don't know, I want to assure you, and I know this for a fact, that those people are not in need, that's number one, and are not the good ones that you really want to spend your money for. If you are really, really truthful about putting your money in the right place, wallahi, brothers and sisters, there are many times that we get truly poor, needy Muslims, men and women, here in this Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and we are not able to help them. You know why? Because we don't have enough funds. So if you truly want to help, put your money in the right place. Ask the office here or any other masjid. Don't worry, put it in PGMA or any other place. There are so many hungry Muslims here in America. In the neighborhood, to be honest. People are in big debt, for example. So those ones are just taking your money and they are laughing at you. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all of them. Jazakallah khair.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. Inshallah, I said what I said, not to become mean or rude to them. We just ignore them, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Staw, straighten your line, shoulder to shoulder. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين